support atheism. What I support is open questioning. What I want kids to learn is to question, and adults too, and not accept and believe things without evidence. Because if we base our lives and our actions on myths and fairy tales, we inevitably produce actions that are irrational. And so the problem with people thinking that the wisdom of the books written thousands of years ago by people who didn't even know the earth orbited the sun, that contains wisdom, is disappointing for me. Because we've learned that essentially all the doctrines of the world's major religions are inconsistent with what we know about the universe. But I don't really care that people... What upsets me is not so much that people need some belief in something that makes them feel better. What upsets me is that they turn that into a reason not to look at the universe. We live in an amazing time when people should appreciate the wonders of the universe. And what saddens me is that for many people, religion blinds them to accepting the wonders of the universe. They say, no, if science says the universe is 14 billion years old, it can't be right because my book tells me it's 6,000 years old. That's so sad. That's like saying the distance across the United States is 17 feet. It's just ridiculous. And it amazes me in the 21st century that there are so many people around the world who are blinded to reality and make policies that are ridiculous. Like in certain countries where they want to kill gay people because they think that it's somehow God said you shouldn't be gay. Well, 10% of all mammal populations are homosexual. Sheep have long-term homosexual relationships. It's not unnatural, it's perfectly natural. Science tells us that. We should base our policies on science. So that's what I don't advocate any belief system, and I don't want to tell anyone to believe. I want to tell people to question, to be skeptical. There are no authorities, and to convince yourself and look for the evidence before you believe anything. Look, religion right now provides consolation, comfort, and for many people it provides a sense of community, belonging. It does all of these things for many people. That's why it's been ubiquitous. If religion didn't have an important social role, it wouldn't have existed throughout all of human history. It obviously fulfills a human need, potentially a need that we're hardwired by evolution to need. So the fact that it fulfills that need is undeniable. The question is, do we need religion to fill that need? And I think we don't. I think we could find community together if instead of every Sunday we had preachers talking about an imaginary being, we instead maybe had a rock concert, or talking about quantum mechanics, or something where we can bring people together and talk about reality. I think the good thing that religion provides, and there's no doubt it does provide something, doesn't need to be provided by religion. It could be provided by getting together and saying, we have a common humanity, we have common problems, we have common needs, common goals. Let's celebrate that commonality, and at the same time, let's celebrate that diversity. And so I don't think we need religion to do any of that. Who said that?
The Pope.
Oh yeah, the Pope? Yeah.
There are a lot of religions that are making those statements on the science or justifying the God existence on the science. What do you think about that? And is really the religion an obstacle? Because a lot of great scientists were religious, like Mendel or Einstein.
Well, it's a good question. They're good questions. First of all, let me answer the second part. A lot of good scientists were religious, but first of all, you have to understand in the history of science, religion was the only game in town. Universities were religious. If you weren't religious, you couldn't get educated. It was like the National Science Foundation of the 15th century. So it's not too surprising that Newton and others were religious, okay? Because that was the only way to get an education. But, so it would be ridiculous to deny that science in its background relates to philosophy and religion. But it's grown out of that. It's gone beyond that. So in our birth, it was involved in religion, but now we've put it aside. And when the Pope, who says so many silly things, says that science, that the Big Bang and evolution are consistent with the Catholic Church, well, it's not consistent with the specific doctrines of the Catholic Church. Now, it is true that the Catholic Church accepts evolution. It has to. But then what he said, if you listen to what he said, and unfortunately I did, he says, well, that's okay, but God set evolution in motion. And that statement is something for which there's no evidence. In fact, there's every evidence to the contrary. So what amazes me is that these people who somehow have faith in God somehow feel the need to say science supports religion. And the reason is because science is telling us how the world works, and religion is becoming more and more irrelevant. And the Pope realizes that to be relevant, he has to embrace science. But believe me, he's irrelevant.
One question. First, last year was here Richard Dawkins in a very interesting debate about religion, about faith, about many things. You are telling us today that it doesn't exist God.
Well, I'm just saying there's no evidence for God.
All right.
I'm saying that if you look at the universe, what is the difference between the universe we live in and a universe that had no God? As far as we can tell, absolutely nothing. So God is an unnecessary hypothesis.
Right.
That's all.
In that way, many religions or many people have tried to use science to comprove what it's written in the Bible, Tanakh, Quran, something like that. That's the first part of the question. Do you come from a religious background, from a family in religion? And the last question is religion good or bad for humanity?
Oh wow, okay, well those are big questions. Well, let me just say that there are people who try to use science to prove the Bible, but that when someone tells you that, you should be suspicious, because it means they know the answers before they ask the questions. It means that they claim to know the answer, and then they want to take whatever we do to prove that what they know innately to be true. But that's not how science works. Richard Feynman said, if we have a good idea, we try to prove it right, but we also try and prove it wrong. That's what makes science so great. We've learned not to trust ourselves. And so when people tell you, I'm going to prove the Bible by science, you should immediately not listen to what they say, because they already have decided what's right. And of course, in the case of the Bible, it's just wrong. Now, the second question was, do I come from a religious family? Well, I was brought up in a family that was Jewish. And I read the Bible, I also read the Quran, but there was no epiphany for me. It was more just a matter of, I read it, and I found when I was a little kid, the stories were fascinating. But like everything else, I just grew out of it. The more I learned about the world, the more I realized those stories were just silly. So it was just a gradual evolution. Now, is religion good or bad for the world? On the whole, I think it's bad. It's not to say that some people don't do good things. But one of my favorite quotes is a quote of a colleague of mine, Steven Weinberg, who's a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, who said, there are good people and there are bad people. And good people do good things, and bad people do bad things. When good people do bad things, it's religion.